We're on to number 2. And I'm surprised.
Number 2.
What's that?
I said, haha, you said number 2.
Drop number 2 on us.
The second one. Okay, I'm surprised nobody's brought up any Japanese horror yet. So allow me to be the first here. And I got to go with Audition from 1999.
That's so disturbing.
It is a very, very disturbing movie. It was number 1 on my disturbing movies list for a long time until I started compiling one today. I'd say it's taken number 2 now for me personally. Number 2 again. But yeah, a film by Takashi Miike, who would do other films like Ichi the Killer and 13 Assassins. This film starts out as just kind of almost like a comedy romance film, and we're following this really nice guy. He's a super nice guy who's a widower, and his buddy works in the film world, and he says, I have this wonderful idea to get you a new lady in your life. What if I hold a fake audition for a movie, and we have all these ladies come, and if you see one you like, then, obviously save her headshot and then go on dates with her and just make the movie was this big ploy or whatever. And he, reluctantly goes along with it. And the lady they pick turns out to be this complete psychopath. We learn this as the film goes along. The whole thing is a build to the final moments of the movie. And it goes crazy David Lynch kind of stuff going on. There's a scene where there's a burlap sack in the background, and suddenly it starts moving. Like there's somebody in it, and we didn't realize that. That was the first time I ever saw a horror movie like that. That really shook me, and there was something addictive about it, and I'm still watching movies like that now, and I have Audition to thank.
Yeah. I think the ending adds layers to it, but the whole movie, it sort of guides you down a path, and then it's constantly sort of making you uncertain of if you're sure where you're going, right? The framing that constant use of like canted angles and weird off center framing gives us a sense of a world that's kind of off, or if it is, if we are seeing the world right, or if we're seeing it maybe subjectively through a particular character's understanding or depiction of that reality. Not to give away too much, but I'm with you on this choice.
Yeah. Anybody else seen Audition?
I have not.
Oh man, yeah. 1999, one of the best years for film, and this is a big reason why. This film.
Okay, so my next selection, I'm sure, is one that many people have seen, but still, again, working on those films that have left a lasting impression. 1980s, The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
I had the privilege of seeing this film at the Louisville Palace during their great director's film series. So many things can be said for this film. I know it's another one that's kind of divisive, but for me, the way it's shot, again, you have that that isolated locale of the mountains of Colorado. You have fantastic performances from Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. And just the whole idea of you're never really sure what's real and what's not. It's just so masterfully put together as a film. And I will say that although I know that Stephen King does not like this adaptation, I think the hedge maze is a lot scarier than animal topiaries that come to life. So I will say advantage hedge maze to resurrected animal topiaries, which that's in the book, folks.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie
resurrected animal topiaries. Terrifying. Right?
Resurrected.
I'm actually in the process of reading the book as we speak. I'm not quite there yet. I've really just started, but
Spoiler.
yeah.
I think this is perfect Kubrick, man. This is so good, and I think that the little details that people have been pointing out in some of these analyses are really good, like where they're in that conference room where they're watching the TV, and the TV's there's not even a cable coming out of it, but somehow it's playing, and somebody analyzed and broke down the path from room to room to room that he takes on his big wheel, and they're like, there's no way this could exist in real space because these hallways would intersect and this space would be on top of that space, right? So they're like, there's no way this place could exist in pure Euclidean three-dimensional world, and it's like, is that a detail? Was that intentional, or is it really just subconsciously working that way? This movie really subconsciously screws us up, I think. I love it. Yeah. It gives me nostalgia for being horrified on this level. It's really good. I love it.
Yeah, not only one of my favorite horror movies, one of my favorite movies in general.
Yeah. One of Kubrick as my favorite director. That's probably one of my favorite Kubrick movies.
It's sadly another one where the director mistreated the performers as well.
Shelley Duvall,
Shelley Duvall and the child. From what I understand, the child actor who played Danny, which is a shame. But the film is just like the visual candy store again. I mean, it's for a long time the carpet design was my background of my phone with all the little icons in front of it. And I think of things like the very red bathroom with he's meeting is it Gracie? Yeah, the butler. I corrected them, sir. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this movie is all sorts of nuts. Grady, thank you. Yeah, and yes, and I didn't really think about this until today, but when you think about the movie Child's Play, and apologies if this is on anybody's list, but Child's Play and Chucky, Brad Dourif is kind of doing a Jack Nicholson voice. Like it's like Chucky is got kind of a Jack Nicholson quality to him, and I think The Shining is a big reason why.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but Brad Dourif, when he does the voice of Chucky, he's throwing some Jack in there.
I just wanted to show off little mini Shelley Duvall.
Autographed.
It's awesome.
Autographed.
That's really cool.
I put the Jack Nicholson one in there, but no, it's not signed.
I know, this was one that I splurged on just because there's a lot of Shelley Duvall graphs going around, but not a lot that have her on the Funko Pop, and she wrote the character name on top too. You probably can't see it very well, but
cool.
She's great in that movie. I mean, for what hell she went through, I mean, it's a great performance. I think people criticize it and they think she's overacting. I'm like, I think she's perfect.
Yeah, she's great.
I think she's legitimately terrified and in distress.
Right. And I think the Razzies had her as a Worst Actress nominee and recently corrected that. They recently backtracked it as an apology and such.
Yeah, because that's a weird call. I think that performance is great.
Yeah. Hell, I thought she was good as Olive Oil in the Popeye movie. Like she's a good actor. Yeah. She was a good actor.
She is amazing.
She got a raw deal. Let's go to DJ.
Yes, my number 2. A lot of people know me. This was bound to show up on the list at some point. But another very early horror film was formative to me that was shown to me when I was probably 11 or 12 is the original 1970s Carrie, starring Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie. When it comes to like Stephen King adaptations, it's definitely one of the best. Up there with The Shining and Misery, kind of the golden Stephen King adaptations. But yeah, it was just a movie that I loved growing up. Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie kind of carry it. Another performance that could and was at the time kind of seen as over the top is Piper Laurie in that movie, just because that character is so insanely erratic. but yeah, it's one that I will always revisit. John Travolta in one of his first film roles, catch him there. And yeah, it just shows that the worst fear that we could know is teenagers. So yeah.
Being different. Yeah, both Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie were nominated for their performances in the film.
Is that a Brian De Palma movie?
It is, and that's something I wanted to bring up too, is that as an adult, my love for that movie, a few years ago, I went down a Brian De Palma rabbit hole, and I watched Sisters, Dress to Kill, and like Blowout, all within a span of like a month.
You know, this is also a Brian De Palma movie.
Oh, cool.
So
awesome. I'll have to watch it.
Yeah,
he's got a very distinct style, and that's the other thing that's like kind of really cool about that movie is how distinctly stylized it is, which you come to see later on in his work that he would come back to it. But the split screen showing two different things happening at the same time from different perspectives is very unique at the time.
That's what I was going to say. He's got that style. This has a scene with some pretty notable and clever split screen stuff in it. I like what he does. I sometimes, there's been a lot of bad Stephen King adaptations and some mediocre ones, but there's been a few really good ones. And I think we just talked about two good ones in a row, didn't we?
Right.
Absolutely.
Cool. Oh, is it me? You guys? Yep. Okay. So number 2, I'm going to bring in another sequel. And another director back for a second time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. So this is great because, of course, we can't discount the brilliance of the original, but I love how this ramps up the chaos. And I grow to embrace chaos in certain films. And this has Bill Moseley, which you have to acknowledge the value of having Bill Moseley in a film, right? This character Chop Top, this disgusting and hilarious ex-hippie man who's turned into the biggest psycho in 80s slasher cinema, but also has some of the funniest lines in the movie. And it gives you a real clear indication that Tobe Hooper is not, he doesn't take this movie so seriously, because look at the cover. It's a satire of the poster for The Breakfast Club.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
I love it. It's brilliant in its chaos. It's hilarious. It's iconic in its silliness, I would say. You got to check that out. It might be the last good one in the series, but it's still great. Diminishing returns, a steady decline down until you get to that Netflix one that just came out. But I really do like this one.
It's awesome.
And you can tell I have it on VHS. Like I said, if I still have the VHS of it, there's probably some value in it.
Very cool.
Anybody seen that one? Has anybody seen the second one specifically?
I haven't seen the second one. I've seen the fourth one.
People hate that one. I kind of like that one too, though.
That is the one with the 2 Oscar winners in it, right? McConaughey and Zellweger. Yeah. That was a fun, cheesy time. Yeah.
And the Leatherface is cross-dressed through the whole thing.
Yes.
Or most of it, yeah.
But yeah, I have heard tale of Texas Chainsaw Part 2 from that great documentary series, In Search of Darkness. They do a whole segment on it and how they didn't really know where to go after the first one, so they kind of did something that was the complete opposite, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, it's definitely one I need to watch.
Oh, it is fun. I mean, it's and again, there's a little bit of horror blended in with the silliness, and it is super gory. But one thing that I forgot to mention, probably the best part of the movie, is Oscar winner Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper engaging in epic sword battles with Leatherface with chainsaws, right? And he even has little hip holstered small chainsaws that he can battle with.
He kind of does Duel of the Fates with it,
exactly. It's an epic battle, rivals anything you're going to see in Star Wars. And he's just like he's a Texas Ranger that's gone crazy trying to track the Sawyer family down, right? And so what do? How do you meet the Sawyer family on their own terms? Well, I'm going to have to go buy a bunch of saws and become really good at saw play, right? I guess it's a great premise.
I saw a Watch Mojo video of the actors with the most deaths on screen, and Dennis Hopper is one of them. He was in the top 10, and And another actor we brought up earlier, Lance Henriksen, was number 3, if I recall.
Okay.
I was surprised. Number 1 was Danny Trejo. Yeah, Machete himself.
That makes
But
sense.
it's a fun video to watch. I gave spoilers on the last one, but whatever. So here we are at number 1, I guess. So I'll start by, before I reveal it, I'll go to the honorable mentions. So I didn't say a whole lot of silly movies because I was all bent on the disturbing ones recently.
And you knew I'd have that covered, I guess.
Yeah. So I will go to the notes here. So the dark and light, I love Shaun of the Dead. I love Ghostbusters. I love Young Frankenstein. I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Ed Wood, Evil Dead 2, Rocky Horror Picture Show, like we listed. The Cabin in the Woods, the original King Kong, Death Becomes Her. I mean, there's a whole lot of fun Halloween movies out there. You don't have to go to the gore necessarily. These are some of the lighter ones that, they might have a little gore in them here and there, but this is a good time if you just want to chill and maybe take it easy on Halloween and not get so get all the scariness, but still have a little bit of creepiness. Those are some ones I would recommend. So I'll just say that as my honorable mentions.
Yeah, let's just do a round of honorable mentions and we'll do our number ones.
There you go. Sure. Next, go ahead.
Yeah, you all have covered most of my honorable mentions with Rosemary's Baby, Psycho, Misery. You mentioned Tay Tay. One that I will add honorable mention. I didn't include on my list because it's also a Devon Sawa film. Final Destination.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of fun, and it's another one that takes a unique premise of having the Rube Goldberg machine that actually kills people. If you don't know what that is, Google it. But it is very inventive. That first film, it has spawned many sequels, which I have seen all but one in the theater, just because it's just so interesting what they can come up with next. So I would add that to my honorable mentions. The Final Destination franchise is just a lot of fun, and it's creative.
Yeah.
Very much to see like what they'll do next.
Yeah.
My honorable mentions, I'll start with one of them that also kind of fell into that category of fun. I really love the Addams Family Values. I actually enjoy it more than the first live action Addams Family movie. A lot of that has to do with Joan Cusack just being so hilariously over the top in that movie. And I believe that's the one with the camp, right? And you get Christine Williams, the camp counselor.
Yep.
A lot of fun. They say you want to buy some Girl Scout cookies. Wednesday says, "Are they made from real Girl Scout?"
That's the first
Love
one.
it.
That's the first.
Oh, I got it mixed up.
Yep.
Oh, either way. But I love. Basically, I just love that second one for just how morbid Joan Cusack is. And then another one that's kind of on the fun side, I added Shock Treatment, which is the spiritual sequel to Rocky Horror. I also had Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Rene Russo. That one kind of goes into the morbidity of like the media, which I thought was really interesting. And then the director of Nightcrawler, whose name I don't know off the top of my head, his follow-up to that was a movie on Netflix called Velvet Buzzsaw, which also had Jake Gyllenhaal, Rene Russo in it. But that one is just basically about these cursed paintings that get added to a museum. Art comes to life and kills you. And Tony Collette is also in that movie. I just
Dan Gilroy is the director.
Yes, but yeah, Velvet Buzzsaw. Kind of a little bit more campy and fun as opposed to Nightcrawler, but definitely worth a watch. You get to see Jake Gyllenhaal's butt, so it's fun.
There you go.
Honorable mention, I have to say, any Cronenberg movie. And actually, some of them probably should have made my list. It's a crime they couldn't. Possibly the fact that I couldn't choose between them contributed, but also it's tough to limit these things. I think Naked Lunch might be the most Cronenbergy of the Cronenberg movies. That or Videodrome. Take your pick. Other honorable mentions: The Burbs. This is one of my
Yeah.
favorite horror comedies. Best Tom Hanks movie ever, you know. Cemetery Man, if you've seen that, Rupert Everett. Psycho Gorman just came out like a couple years ago. This is like if Hellraiser met the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers or something. Very hilarious premise. This violent demon from outer space that is known for the most horrific of treatments of living organisms somehow gets accidentally bound to the will of a petulant earth child, and so the hilarity ensues. And so of course she's having him take care of her bullies and stuff. The most crazy Nicolas Cage movies, Mandy. Definitely check this out. It's got a lot of death metal stuff going on, and it's got some just crazy cinematography that's really beautiful, and it starts with a King Crimson song, so they got me right off the bat. Okay, that's my honorable mentions. Now we're ready to hit the big time, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll go number one, and I would say this. The more I think about it, this film has out-creeped me out with it. Audition was number one on the throne, and I think I'm ready to dethrone it with this one. And it may be an unpopular decision, but what the hell? I'm going with the 2015 film Green Room. This movie left a mark on me. It's the final film of Anton Yelchin, who was a young actor who was probably most famous for playing Chekhov in the Star Trek reboots. And he himself was also tragically killed in a freak car accident. And it's awful that he's not with us anymore. And this movie was a strong indication of his talent. And it's about a punk band who go on to do a gig because they're short on money, and they find out that they're doing a gig a little too late while they're on stage for a bunch of neo-Nazis. And they decide, like, it's a neo-Nazi hole-in-the-wall bar out in the middle of nowhere. And they decide, you know, they're a punk band. They're gonna stick it to these guys. They perform some songs that would not be in their favor, and then they go back to the green room, and what do you know? There's a dead girl on the ground, and we gotta figure out what to do about this. They slowly realize that they are locked in the green room. They are held captive there. They are prisoner. And the head of the neo-Nazis of this film is Patrick Stewart. We're going full circle here with your film there. There, F-bomb. But a pretty great cast. You also have Imogen Poots, Alia Shawkat from Arrested Development. Yeah, I know her name. Yeah, but real thrashing kind of a soundtrack that, and there's a lot of gruesomeness with they're using dogs as kind of their murderers and weapons. And man, it's a really tough film to watch at times. But if you want to get scared for Halloween, pop in Green Room or turn on Green Room into the digital world. It has left a mark with me. It's an undeniable mark. And rest in peace, Anton Yelchin.
Yeah, I like that one too. It's very tense. The graphic violence doesn't like shy away from it, and so you see we see a lot of violence, but to see violence like, oh, that's probably what it would really look like, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a super real movie. Feels super real. Anybody else seen Green Room yet?
It's been on my list for a while, but it's just one of those where I have not worked up the nerve to turn it on. But yeah, I know the premise and it sounds interesting, but yeah, it sounds very intense.
It is that indeed, my friend. But it's a very well done movie. I liked it a lot.
So my number one pick is The Silence of the Lambs. Not necessarily your traditional horror film, but a film that delves into the psyche in a way that is truly terrifying. And you not only have the serial killer Buffalo, I was messing up. Buffalo Bob. No,
Buffalo Bill. It's Buffalo. Yeah.
Because I always think it can't be Buffalo Bill. That's the real
Buffalo William, if you're fancy.
Yeah. If you're not on friendly terms. And then you have another psychopath as kind of the mentor to kind of give you a picture into that world. And just what's surprising is Anthony Hopkins is only on screen for like 17 minutes of the movie. Like, he creates such an indelible performance. You think he's in it for so much more, but he's not. That's how impactful his performance is. And Jodie Foster, like, navigating that world is just so compelling. Like, it's a reason that, it's not really a surprise that it's a Big Five winner, because the script and the performances and just how the movie is crafted is just, it's a masterclass in filmmaking. Yeah. And again, much like the rest of the list, not necessarily my favorite, Halloween scary thrilling movie, but it's one of my favorite movies as well.
I love that movie. And that's one that the first time I watched it, it was one where I felt like I was holding my breath the entire time when I watched it for the first time.
The misdirects in the end. It's very nice.
And Jodie Foster, that was kind of when I fell in love with her just as an actress, and yeah, love that movie. Fun fact, if you ever want to listen to the audiobook, there is an audiobook version of it narrated by Kathy Bates.
Nice. Michelle Pfeiffer was actually in consideration for Clarice.
It would have been a very different movie.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that movie is out of this world good. I mean, it's one of three movies to only three movies ever in existence to get the big five Oscars of Best Picture, Best Direction, Best Lead Actor, Best Lead Actress, and Best Screenplay. That's a sure sign you're watching a masterpiece. For if you ask me, the only other two movies to do that are It Happened One Night back in the 30s when the Oscars weren't even 10 yet, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah,
those are good movies.
Yeah.
I kind of even like the sequel and the prequel. Like I like Red Dragon,
No.
I just like seeing Anthony Hopkins play that character so much.
Yeah, I like that he puts a little Katharine Hepburn into that, with his voice and his cadence.
Yeah.
Going back to 2001 Space Odyssey, I'm just reading here. Sir Anthony Hopkins said he saw Lecter as similar to HAL 9000 in 2001 Space Odyssey, a highly complex, highly intelligent, highly logical killing machine who seems to know everything going on around him.
One of the best villains in both of them best villains. Yeah. Very good. DJ, you're number one.
This will come as a surprise to no one. My number one is Hocus Pocus. I feel like that has just become a sort of like basic, but I grew up with it. I feel like I was like that one kid of my age group at like a really young age that loved that movie. So in a way, I kind of feel ownership over it as a Hocus Pocus hipster. Being like, I liked it before it was on TV all the time. But yeah, super duper, like the epitome of just like a fun Halloween movie. Very dark for a Disney movie. You have these three witches that are out to suck the lives out of children. Very relatable. Great performances comedically from Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy. But yeah, it's like a modern Halloween staple for a good reason, and I never get tired of it. And Bette Midler sings, so.
Oh, Hocus Pocus with Doug Jones. Okay, I know which one you're talking about now.
Yeah, and also Doug Jones.
I still can't get over the moment in our Halloween game show where he wrote
all the actors he could name, and it's like
he wrote Doug Jones.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I miss Andrew. That's things like that.
Right.
But yeah, And they just had a sequel release for Hocus Pocus also recently, yeah. And you saw that?
And I won't go into super deep thoughts on it because that's not what this is about. But I enjoyed it for the most part. It kept a lot of the spirit of the original. But we can do. You can hit subscribe and punch that bell if you want to hear DJ Uncle Tay Tay's deconstruction of Hocus Pocus 2 at a later date.
Yeah.
That's an empty promise. I'm not going to do that.
All right, F-bomb's number one. I can't wait.
Okay. So I've got to come back to Clive Barker. My favorite author, one of my favorite visual artists. This is one of my favorite movies, and it's tough because it's a flawed movie. It's an imperfect movie. It's just a mark of how this ambitious storyteller tried to translate one of his least translatable stories into film within a studio system that didn't get the story at all. So they made this, Nightbreed, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
One of my favorite horror movies, despite its problems. And then a few years ago, they were able to release this, the director's cut, which is improving upon the flaws that the studio, through various editing things that didn't make sense. There's jump cuts out of nowhere. There's bits of story missing that don't make sense. This restored a lot of the problems. It corrected a lot of the problems to the extent that was possible with the footage that survived. But so much of this movie is done so good, and it just really creates an ambitious horror world. It's horror fantasy in a way that only Clive Barker can do. And for me, for my money, this has the absolute best, most iconic horror villain of all time in the psychotherapist Philip Deckard, right?
Ooh, okay.
Who is secretly a slasher murderer, right? And so there's this idea that you have these two concurrent plots. One of them is a monster movie, and a guy finding himself in this new community, and then concurrently there's a slasher story of the slasher villain who's doing his slasher thing. So it's almost like Halloween meets Frankenstein. You have these two stories at the same time, and you have just this really brilliant metaphor for social oppression, right? The idea that this whole group of people, these outcasts, are being oppressed by these rednecks in this small town, and they go into this cemetery with guns. They're going to take them all out. Well, the Nightbreed have to fight back. It's just so good. Everything about this movie, I love it. And I know, people criticize it for some of the stuff that's wrong with it, but they fixed it the best they could. And I have to praise Clive Barker for even making this story. It's just, how many people have seen Nightbreed?
I have not, but I might have heard the music of it. Is it? It's not Danny Elfman, is it?
Danny Elfman.
Okay, so I have heard the music for it. It sounds awesome.
Art direction by the guy Ralph McQuarrie from Star Wars, right? Okay. You have all of this stuff that really should have worked in this movie, and then the studio came in and they're like, we don't understand it. We want to turn it into a conventional monster movie. And Clive Barker's like, you're not quite getting it. The monsters are the good guys here, right? It's society is the oppressive sort of social force that is bringing that they're responsible for all the tension and conflict. And of course, that's Clive Barker expressing his frustration at rampant homophobia and all of this cultural conflict that's perpetuated by a status quo that wants to label everything as deviant. That's not easily categorizable into these boxes, right? So that's where you get the Nightbreed, or the sort of proxies for the oppressed, and I think that's what really works well in a lot of horror movies. I love this movie so much. I'm babbling on about it because I love it so much.
I love that part. Yeah, I love that movies that get you to do that, and it really does say something. A movie that you love the imperfections as well. I mean, like Shawshank Redemption is a movie like that for me. I get it. Yeah, it's I got to check that one out. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, man. And like I said, there's the director's cut you probably want. This is the one the studio butchered. But like I said, if I hang on to it when it's a VHS and I still have it, it's sentimental value attached to it.
As you were talking, I looked it up on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
And I guess at some point I had heard about it because it was already in my watch list.
Oh, nice. So you have watched it then?
No, it's on. It's like my to watch
watch,
list, like on my
yes.
list of stuff,
Yeah.
like my like to watch list.
I
But
think the director's cut is on Shudder if you still have your account. Or at
I
least-
do. I reactivated it just for October, so I could watch Queer for Fear.
Yeah, it should still be on there. Joe Bob Briggs did it last season on his last drive-in show, and he gave just this really beautiful summary of the movie and its meaning, and how proud he was for Clive Barker doing this and making this movie, even though he didn't quite pull it off. Right? It's just the balls to do it at all, to try to create that world.
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot of movies we just went over that I know I'm going to check out at least half of these that I've never seen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rosemary's Baby, Chris.
yes,
Rosemary's
yeah.
Baby.
Maybe I'll start there.
I hit you over the head with my Criterion copy.
Yeah, I hope this was informative for the viewers. I feel like it was informative for us here at the table and at the chat table, round table, if you will.
We all have stuff to check out. I love that.
Yeah, I'm happy with doing this video. I love doing little chit chats like this, and we usually do this kind of thing in award season, and I'm sure we will again in the upcoming award season. But this was a good idea to do. I'm really happy with it, and we are way over on time, so I'm just gonna say goodbye from F-Bomb, from Johnny, from DJ, and me, Chainsaw McMassacre Face. Feel free to punch that bell and learn about movies more and more.
Happy
Love you
Halloween.
Happy Halloween.